My fellow Americans, I see you need help buying stocks. This is step 3 from the last video. If you have not seen it, go back and watch it. I even put on a special dress for you guys, even though it's bedtime. Grab your seat. Now, disclaimer, as mentioned before, investing is step 3 of Nina's 3-step program to financial freedom. So if you're still on steps 1 and 2, go back and rewatch the video and take your notes. This particular part of investing, stocks, okay, it requires a little bit of extra critical thinking. So go ahead and put on your thinking caps, and you might need some notes for this one, for real. For today's stock example, we're going to be using because we used this in our previous video. Now, we're looking at our 1-week projection graph, and as you can see, we are in the red. We're using the app Public. If you guys want to stock trade with me, Ninadoesthemost.com, and you can stock trade with me. I get $20, you get $20, we all get $20. Now, as you can see in this example, we are at our 1-week projection where it's down 8.5% from the past week. We all see that. It's written in the graph. There's no guesswork. Now, for the sake of what we're doing today, we're going to pretend that this is like CapCut or a zoom in, zoom out feature where we can use our 2 fingers to expand and contract. Right now, we are super zoomed in to a 1-week perspective, but let's take our fingers and pretend zoom out just a little bit to this 1 month. After pretend squeezing and zooming out to the 1-month view, we can see that it's only down 5.8% from the previous month. Now, pay attention to the pattern of this line because as we continue to zoom out to the 3 and 6 month, you'll see where this lies on the overall graph. Now we can see that after squeezing a little more to that 3-month view, see where that curve was over here? Boom, there it is. But we're only down 1.1% from the past quarter or the past 3 months. So we can see from this information that from 1 week all the way to 3 months is in the red, also known as on sale. Great time for buying those stocks at a discount. Now, let's zoom out to 6 months because this is when things start to change. Wait, one more thing. We're going to nickname this curve over here Rhinoceros, just for fun's sake. See, now we're in the green. Things have changed. Tides have turned. If we look up, we can see that in the past 6 months, we are actually up 28.4% in the green. Remember when I said we were going to nickname this hump right here the Rhinoceros? This is your peak. As you can see, this is the highest time on the whole entire graph, which is great. This will be a good time to sell, not a good time to buy. If you would have bought 6 months ago versus where we are today, even at the lowest point, you still profited because check it out. The lowest point right here is still much higher than where it was 6 months ago. An overall increase, which is what we love to see. You're a beginner stock trader, you definitely want to see a progressive increase in the graph when you look at 6 months, 1 year, and of course 5 years. But I want to pay attention to these last 3 peaks. So let's go ahead and squeeze in to 3 months one more time so we can see some advanced calculations. I love data. Here's the most exciting part. If you actually read the graph correctly, there's very little guesswork on how to buy, sell, hold. It's no gambling. Let me tell you how I know. So if you were to open this in your stock trading app, for example, and you were to click or long press on one of these points, it would tell you exactly which date these points occurred at. So then you can kind of do an average on, see, let's say from peak 1 to peak 2, you see the valley in between. You can say, okay, this was 2 weeks. Then you can look at this peak and do the average and say, okay, this was another 2 weeks. I've done the math for you, which is how I know that both of these valleys happened within 2 weeks of each other, which means just off of the 3-month average, you know that if you are down, it's going to be about an average of 2 weeks before you make a recovery. Now, if you were to do this for about a whole year or 2, you can see that there's very little guesswork because you're taking the average amount of time needed to recover to then guesstimate how much time you'd be down and up based on about 12 different points of calculation. You see how that worked out? We took just 2 right here, but we can take one every single week for the next 5 years. Moving back into the 1-year view, we can see that had a little valley back at the beginning of the year. I've already done this research for you. This occurred back in January. Again, I just clicked that little area right there from my app. Obviously, I am in TikTok right now, so I cannot show you. But yes, you're going to use your app to just boom, long press, and you can see, this is January, a terrible month. But we can also guesstimate, why did they have a terrible month? Now, you can do extended research and then look and see what happened in January with and then find the answer. You know, and this is how you would critically think and tie real life events back into what's going on in the fiscal calendar and the fiscal data. But in this case, it's not rocket science. It's right after the holidays. And let me see, does it have a trend of low stock values right after the holidays? Yes, I looked into the 5 years and I did the calculations, and every single January, the stocks go down. Listen, don't shoot the messenger. I just did my research. Supported by this is data. Now, if we pretend squeeze out a little bit further to the 5-year graph, we can see all these little valleys. These happen to be in January. Now, what is this up here? It's 2020. Now, we can see that this is abnormal data, abnormally high returns due to the increase of staying inside. E-commerce and tech businesses were up and up in 2020. So we obviously saw a big increase, and we don't expect to see anything like that soon unless we stay inside again, which in my opinion is why people are pushing for another recession / you know, something of that nature. They want those graphs to increase. Again, you didn't hear that from me. A few final things to note about the graph is that during May of 2022, we had a nasty pitfall, and I don't know what happened there, but that's what's so exciting about graphs and data, is that you don't have to know. The information will tell you that something happened, and then you can go and do the back research, what happened back in May, and you can see, oh, okay, there were some events, child. Next, you don't have to do extra math to figure out and try to guesstimate when things are going to recover. If you hold for a long time, the longer you hold, the more you mitigate your risk. So you don't have to be that accurate as long as you make sure that you are buying in a discount one of these pits. If you use the same method to zoom in and zoom out into our imaginary timeline, you can actually see that in 2040, I'm your president. Now, the way that the presidency works in America is once you're given that title, it never goes away. So president wants president forever. Therefore, if you zoom back out of the graph and you zoom into where we're living now, you can see that I'm actually your president. We're just looking at a different part of the graph. In conclusion, if you want to buy stocks, the best time to do so is when stocks are at a discount or on sale. And the best time to sell your stocks would be when they are at that peak over that 1 year or even 3-month period. There are certain companies that will pay you what are called dividends, which are like a piece of the additional earnings per quarter. This is really exciting because not all companies pay dividends, but if you receive them, it's like getting free money to reinvest back into the stocks. Now, if after this explanation you're still confused, please stick to mutual funds, which you can refer to as kind of like a pie, where each slice is a different stock. That way, if one isn't doing well, you still have the rest of the pie. For more tips and tutorials, make sure you vote for Nina and follow your future president.